I
And
love
we are live. How
I
are you,
love it when you're
Linda?
doing the countdown. That's great.
Too fun. I need one of those little clipper, those little clipper scene clip things. You
Exactly.
can actually buy those things. I've seen them. I'm thinking, where would I use that? I just
Oh,
need
I
an
don't know.
on the air little thing above me here saying, okay, so that I know that I'm on the air. Well,
And
welcome everyone. Oh, sorry. What was that?
sometimes we need the shepherd's hook too.
Well, that especially for me, especially for me. Welcome everyone to the live stream. We're glad that you're able to make it today on this. It's actually, I don't know where you're at, but in Calgary, it's getting warm. The snow is melting. It's like one big slushy out there right now, but that's okay. I'll take it. Linda, she escaped last weekend. She was in Radium, right, Linda?
Yeah, it was fantastic. We did the big skate from Invermere to Windermere and got my exercise and my dose of the mountains, and it just felt like a great break from Calgary.
Cool, cool. Now, with this fishing derby thing or tournament, you didn't catch a fish, I heard. Rumor
No,
has it.
we were just observers. We saw
Oh,
all
okay.
the fun stuff and the flat screens of what's going on underneath the ice. That's all. That's the extent of what we did.
That is pretty cool. That's pretty cool. I would have loved to seen that. That some of these guys go all out, don't they?
Completely with the sofas and the wood stoves.
Very cool. Well, today's topic, we're going to be talking about mental detox. We talked about detox last week and the cabbage soup. Now we're going to actually talk about the detox, right, Linda?
Well, emotional detox.
Emotional. Thank you. Let's frame that properly. Emotional
Yeah.
detox, because there
I
is a
mean,
big difference. So why do we now after a physical detox we need a mental detox, and why is that?
well, I'm not sure if it's after a physical one. It just seems one rolls into the other
Hmm.
because as we maybe detox from a lot of we feel the need to remove accumulations from our physical bodies, our digestive tracts. We've been craving, we've been doing lots of dietary experimentation over the holidays. So we needed a bit of a break from there. But as we're doing that process of limiting and hopefully focusing on hypoallergenic foods like the cabbage soup, what bubbles up to the surface is sometimes little annoyances and grievances we have percolating underneath, which could be just the fact that we're not getting a dose of our usual foods that we're craving.
Sure, sure. Now you'd mentioned that it doesn't necessarily follow a detox, a physical detox, and I agree with that. That I think that that's one of those things that you may need an emotional detox when
Anytime.
anytime, right? Yeah. How do you know or can catch that you need one by
Yeah.
somebody else telling you that you need one, or how do you know?
Yeah. And that can be not a pretty scene, right?
That's right.
I think we're seeing a lot of need for emotional detox these days on account of 2 years of accumulation of unknowing, uncertainty, fear, worries, all those concerns. And how do we see that? We see people being short-tempered. We see a lot of crying. At least that's what I see in my practice when people are expressing their concerns, and the whole um, attitude towards what are we doing? How long is this going to last? And the range is the gamut.
Mm-hmm.
I think the thing to identify is that we're stuck in an emotion.
Yeah, yeah.
So how do we start to identify, like you said, how do we know if we need an emotional detox? What does that look like? Because it's starting to impact our physical health,
Yeah,
um,
yeah,
including our immunity.
yeah, yeah. And the thing of it is, in my business practice, I see angry people and people who are suffering from, this toxification. whether it's physical, whether it's things that's happening around there. But I see a lot of angry people, and I don't think it's like, do you need one? It's like, when are you going to do one? Maybe that's a little more accurate, eh? Because I think everybody needs one right now. I don't know. Maybe you think something different.
Well, I have a fridge magnet, I'm going to confess, and it's a little owl, and it says, I have one nerve left, and you're standing on it.
Yeah, I know what that's like. One nerve left, and you're standing on it. I love that. I love
So,
that.
the stress is usually can be expressed as anger. And as I said, some people break down crying.
Yeah.
They don't take to the road of anger. They take to another approach of expressing stress. But underneath that stressfulness is, if you take the time to really feel what's the feeling, you will be able to identify a bigger emotion underneath that.
Mm-hmm.
And these days, as in most of my hypertensive patients, I'm going to say too, um, we have to delineate at times, is this something I can control or not? Is this my business?
Right.
Is it somebody else's business that I'm messing in? Or is it God's business?
Yeah. Yeah.
Or a higher spirit, or a higher um, energetic force that is out of my control? Like, the weather is not my business.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a pretty typical, but people tend to overcompensate for their own uncomfortableness by messing around in other people's lives. Like, that is not your business.
So much. And so here's a question. How do we let things go? Because people say let it go. I mean,
Yeah.
I've got the sign which is partly covered up here called whatever, because I'm just getting to that point where I was like, what, my daughter says, whatever, like, you can't do anything. But boy, sometimes I don't catch myself, and you getting angry at what's going on out in the world or whatever, right? And so, how do you let things go, or can you let things go?
Well, the immediate reaction is a human reaction. You're angry, you're upset, you get scared.
Yeah.
Whatever that reaction is noticing that that is the emotion. And the term emotion, that's the key. It
Mm.
doesn't have to stay there. It's motion. You feel
Oh,
it, and then you move through it. You don't allow it to get stuck in your body. So when people say to let it go, and you want to punch their lights out first,
you're not ready to let it go yet.
yeah, or the other cliche is breathe, take a breath.
Yeah.
Um, but if you don't frame it and give it some context, like, people, when they're at the heat of the moment, just the best thing to say to someone is really, I understand,
Yeah.
because we've all had those feelings at one time or another.
Yeah.
So letting it go is kind of, taking that moment to pause, that you're feeling the emotion. It's just, don't get addicted to the emotion.
That's an interesting term. Don't get addicted to the emotion. Do we get addicted to these emotions, like, and hang on to them?
Yes.
Because they can spin, can't they? I guess in our heads and just exacerbate, make get worse.
Well, think about an individual, whether it's cranky Uncle Bill or whoever that we know operates. His MO is operating from crankiness,
Yeah.
or um, the busybody neighbor who knows everybody's business, because guess what? She can't deal with her own business. So she shakes off her uncomfortableness by distracting herself, by getting involved with the neighbors or whatever. See?
Wow, that's really interesting. That's very insightful. Huh.
So the MO that we're operating from is really important to just understand within ourselves. And it takes time to practice self reflection to see where that's actually coming from. So, yeah, if you enjoy coming from being angry, or take on bullying, or whatever it is that you choose to express your personal uncomfortableness,
Mm-hmm.
it gets to be a point of excuse for you to off gas your own uncomfortableness. If you observe an animal that's been shocked or hurt or had a close encounter of almost being eaten or something of that nature,
Mm-hmm.
they shake their bodies. They shiver, and the shivering is a discharge for their emotion of fright.
I never knew that. That is interesting because I've seen that. I've seen that quite a bit. So, oh, that is really interesting. But we don't do that. We don't shiver or shake.
Well, we can. What about people that are into boxing? They want to
Yeah.
go out and,
Yeah.
to get rid of the emotion of frustration or anger. I mean, that's maybe a little healthier way to do it in the gym.
Yeah.
Or you go and run as fast as you can. Like, it's an activity of your body. So it's enhancing the motion, the
Right.
emotion. So that's one way of sort of dropping it is, what can I do and where can I do something that will shift the energy? So instead of shivering like a scared little dog or something like that, what motion can I do? And there's Kundalini yoga practices, that I teach Kundalini yoga. And um, on YouTube, Yogi Amandeep is an interesting character, and he has a practice of you shake
Oh, really?
and you shake for 15 minutes.
Oh, wow. That's a long time.
Yeah, so if you try it, you'll see that it feels a long time.
Yeah, I bet.
But just shaking up or dancing, going for a walk, the exercise, um, take a breath is something you can do anytime, anywhere. So once you notice you're in the grips of an emotion, and just like plugging out of this Windows program into that Windows program, you choose to move out of that emotion when you choose to move out of it. If you're not choosing because you happen to be enjoying being angry because there's some payoff for you, then you hang on to your state of anger or your
Right.
state of upset, or you get attention from it. Like, really take an examination of why you enjoy worrying. There's got to be a reason there.
Yeah.
So moving.
Or why you're stuck in that worrying.
Mhm.
There is a reason for being there, right? It's like I know for myself, sometimes I don't recognize it, and then you go down a rabbit hole with that, whatever it is, whatever emotion it is, and then somewhere down the line you go, oh yeah, and it maybe usually it's somebody with a calm voice that says something, and then you relax. At least that's what's happened for me in the past. If somebody comes at me and more angry, then that just makes it worse. It's like throwing gasoline on the thing. But a calm voice seems to kind of, okay, get my bearings and, oh yeah, what's going on? I mean, that doesn't happen that often, but when it has happened, when the kids were home more than not, that's when, you're chasing kids or what have you. But that is really interesting. That is really interesting. Wow.
And then the negative, that's another thing we tend to do is we label these emotions as, that's a good emotion or that's a not so great emotion.
Yeah.
So it's still an emotion and it has a message for us.
Yeah.
So if we're angry or if we're happy, it's a message that whatever it is in our environment is suiting us or not suiting us, and then make a decision around that.
Yeah.
So emotions are very helpful. They guide us through our lives. And you could call a gut sensation as being an emotion too, like
Yeah.
giving us intuition.
Yeah. And you can, and these emotions, I've heard people use the term states, and you can change these states.
Yeah, plug in and plug out.
Yeah, yeah, and maybe we can, as we go a little bit further down, we cover that a little bit because I think that's an interesting thing. What about now? We're doing these mental detox, and should a person be taking any meds or taking any pharmaceutical type stuff, or maybe herbology type stuff in order to help with this process?
Yeah, that's a great thing to bring up because something I hear and heard as a pharmacist, and now in my naturopathic clinic, people will tell me, well, I went on this pharmaceutical, an SSRI or some sort of antidepressant or something to help with their anxiety, um, to mitigate their feelings, and yet they're still not moved through the issues that the feelings brought up.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm concerned when I read some papers about even short term use, because that's the other rationale is that, well, I was only to go on it for a couple months, and here I am 3 years down the track and I'm still on it. Um, there are indications that it does change brain chemistry and permanently,
Yeah.
not necessarily something that just goes away after discontinuing use.
Yeah.
So um, there are plenty of herbal medicines and homeopathic remedies to help with your current state or feeling. And it's important to feel the feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And in the short term, as you're doing and making changes as to the source of the feeling, maybe if it's what you would call a negative emotion, um, you just have to get the right dose and the frequency of taking it.
Right.
And that is whether that will help determine whether it helps you or not, because nothing's worse than people saying, oh, I tried everything under natural medicine and it didn't help me, so therefore I'm now on this.
Yeah.
And frequently I just find out they just picked the wrong one for them, for
Sure.
one thing, and they just didn't take a high enough dose to get an effect. So that's extremely important in, incorporating natural medicines as opposed to a pharmaceutical. Of course, if one is suicidal, this is critical in, that's a state of hopelessness, and people need a lot more support. It's not going to come from a chemical or a natural product. they
Right.
they need a lot of, um, as they say, cognitive behavioral therapy. They need to feel supported by their community or their family or their friends,
Yeah.
and reignite their purpose.
Yeah.
So that's a completely different matter than what we're talking about here.
Sure. Sure.
What I want people to be aware of is that chronic feelings of emotion start to wear on your physical body.
Mm-hmm.
And in traditional Chinese medicine, they like to associate certain emotions with different physical problems, like the anger and liver, and fear and worry is the kidneys, and the brain, like ill thinking or too much joy or not enough joy can affect the heart and the small intestine. I mean, at the end of the day, is it going to get stuck and damage that organ only? No, because really it's stress, uh, disbalance in the body, and all of these organs are communicating with one another. So
There's kind of a cascade effect.
yeah,
Yeah.
you just don't have liver fire. You as the Chinese medical doctors say, you probably have broad spectrum inflammation because you're also expressing a lot of hostility.
Yeah.
So other things are going to suffer, your joints, from the inflammation of the thinking.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's really important to understand that it's the getting stuck. And as a community and population, we're always trying to people please and fit in. So we tend to stuff our emotions or our feelings, or not express our concerns or anxieties because we look weak or we won't fit in. Um, and I think it's, again, our culture not lending itself to getting good communication skills and accepting people who do express their opinions.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and I've been involved with that with some of my kids and even myself and I understand that there's a bit of a broken system there, and that stuff is that's so important. The one of the thing what are some of the things that we can do if we take, say we don't take the herbs or the meds from the pharmacy. We don't take that. What are some things that we can do to knock down or do a detox without, not the way we would think where we take something to do a detox or maybe take a soup that's going to do a detox, but for our mental state, what practices or things can we do to manage or detox that mental state, whatever it is?
Yeah. So the first thing is the awareness.
Number one, awareness.
Yeah.
Is it hard
So,
sometimes to catch or be aware?
yeah, I guess you can look at the human wreckage around you
True.
and just gauge it by that. Like, um, and how are you feeling? Like, is that a feeling you want to have? I
Yeah.
would rather be having fun and joking around, and
Yeah.
laughter is good medicine. It's just getting to that point where you can laugh at something that could have been, you could choose to cry or you
Yeah.
could choose to throw things. So what do you want?
I know for I did I was teaching consultants years ago. These were people just going off and becoming consultants. It was a program that the government was putting on, and I was facilitating some classes. And one of the interesting things that I found were that people don't assess themselves. They don't go and look and say, well, where am I at? What am I doing? Like pull out the internal compass and say, am I going in the right direction? Am I thinking the right things? What are my values? What's important to me? And they don't uncover that. And it was something that I've always done. And it was really kind of threw me off when I found that this group of people, there was maybe one in this bunch of people that actually did that, and I thought that was odd. In your practice, have you find many people that actually do self-assess to become aware?
I find that's one of the differentiating factors of people that come in to see a naturopathic doctor is
Mm,
because they're stepping out of that um, very simplistic view of how do I become healthy and
right.
balanced.
Yeah.
So self-reflection is usually what people will throw this term around a lot is like journaling.
Yeah.
Like, so if you regularly journal and allow yourself to have a place to go to and go, well, where am I in this? And I guess it could bring on sadness and grief if you don't see any movement.
Right.
But people need to understand that, um, and I've had to go through it is making smaller chunks, like small steps to
Yeah.
making a change, as opposed to taking on the whole elephant.
Yeah.
Um,
And that's my biggest challenge is my mindset is I'm going to take this on and
Me
drive
too.
through it, and 9 times out of 10 I fall flat in my face. And you think after 63 years I would learn, but hey, I've got a bruised nose and I just keep falling on my face. But I try. I'm trying, but it's not always easy for me. I don't know. I'm not going to give up, but it's one of those things that you just keep pushing forward and trying to do the best you can. And I think I don't know about you, but sometimes I'm my worst critic. I beat myself up, and that's not a good thing too, because I can really beat myself up to the point where I feel like I'm useless, and that's another bad loop to get into, isn't it?
Yeah, because there's some reason you need to feel that way.
Yeah.
So why do we need to feel that way? And ask yourself, well, I don't want to feel that way. So how can I feel differently? So again, look, self-reflection of what's the benefit for me to continue feeling like that? Oh,
Yeah.
none. Why am
Yeah.
I doing that? Okay, beat myself up about that.
So no beating yourself up. That's a good rule to follow.
And then you can, if you don't beat yourself up, then you're less likely to go around beating everybody else up. So if you don't
True.
start with yourself and understand that you have frailties and other people are experiencing frailties right now,
Hmm.
um, which uh, that's really tricky these days, I
Yeah.
have to say. So getting to that place of awareness is super important. Um, and then understanding, is this a chronic state that you're in or is it a temporary one, and that you can choose. And motion is the second most important thing. So when people see that you're down in the dumps, how many people say, hey, why don't we go for a walk? Do you feel like going for a walk? Or let's dance around the living room, put on some great music, and or do a yoga practice if that's your thing. Um, Always have some sort of form of motion. So even listening to music, it's the vibration and the change of energy state
Right.
that a music can put you into. So again, it's a shift of the energy, and then you choose what you're going to, how you're going to express and move forward with your day. So that brings us to the third most important one, which is gratefulness. And every spiritual practice on the planet
Yeah.
always talks about being grateful and blessed for the positive things that are going on in our lives, even though there may be a lot of negative.
Right.
So, um, and it can be very flippant as a matter of, well, I ran out of gas on the Deerfoot. Oh my God. Um, on the way to the office yesterday, good grief. And I was squeezing the fuel tank. I knew it, but I pulled over, and I'm telling you, an angel showed up, a trucker from a trucking company who was in between jobs, pulled up behind me and says, hey, lady, do you need some help? And he didn't have gas in his jerry tank, but he loaded me onto his flatbed and took me to Road King.
Oh man, wow.
And I was 15 minutes late for my appointment, but I got there, and it was just incredible. And I was so grateful.
Yeah.
And the rest of the day enabled me to see the gratefulness in everything that was going on. And I
Yeah.
think that's a really pleasant state of mind for me.
Yeah.
And gratefulness has been shown to help sleep, stomach problems, and you have to practice it. So I
Yeah.
had a great opportunity to practice gratefulness yesterday.
That is cool. That is so cool. That's a great story. I really like that. I
It
really
was,
like that.
yeah, the guy's name's Woody, and
Woody.
he's that's his name. He wants me to contact his boss and let him know that he squeezed that in, and that we're going to write a Google review for him
Oh, good.
so that he can have some benefit. That was great.
So just to recap what you said there. So we want to be aware, number one.
Number one,
Number two, we want to be in motion, some sort of
motion,
exercise, that sort of stuff,
breathing.
breathing, that sort of thing. And
Yeah.
then the third, gratefulness. The combination of those two are really going to improve a person's, mental health or detox from where they're at. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. And so the fourth thing is you get to choose
Yeah.
your emotion.
Yeah.
This is not something somebody gave to you.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
Uncle so and so or your mother in law or whatever did not make you angry.
Yeah.
You chose that reaction, and you can have that reaction initially. That I'm not saying you can't react.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, how long are you going to stay stuck there?
Yeah. I like that one too. You have the choice. There are few things in reality. There's only a few things that we have control, and that's definitely one of them. Right there is that. So one last question for you: should a person bring on like a psychiatrist or a therapist in any of this? And how would you know if you do need to?
Yeah. Um, Different people respond differently to that type of support.
Hmm.
So if you're somebody that feels that a knowledgeable, wise counselor is what I'm going to say, they don't necessarily have to have a medical shingle to resort to. But again, it's a spectrum of emotion. Like, how stuck are we? How extreme is it on hurtfulness to ourselves? So if we want to label ourselves as an anxiety, anxious person, there's a lot of digging around we can do there to find out, is that an ancestral handed down by the family? Maybe you need to see a constellation therapist that will help you with the lineage problem of always having anxious people in the family.
Right. Right.
And same with depression. How is it that maybe there's other glandular imbalances that are going on that contribute to the depression?
Yeah.
Not just a cognitive thing. So exploring that with a counselor may or may not come up.
Yeah.
um, but if it's something that you're seeing improvement with by getting things off your chest,
Mm-hmm.
and you need a one-on-one person, you don't want to burden your family or friends anymore with it, you don't want to write it in a journal. But self-exploring, we all want to know that we are our own best advice if given the opportunity.
Yeah. I really like that. That's a really great statement. I like that. I've got one more question. I lied. I said that was the last question. I got one more question. You and I were talking before, and I said, "What is MEPS? MEPS?"
Ah,
And you said, "Oh, I'll tell you on the show." So what
yeah,
is
yeah.
MEPS? It's right here. I've got here. Health is a condition of states. MEPS. What's MEPS?
MEPS. Okay. So mental, emotional, physical, spiritual. That's the MEPS that
Ah,
gives you 100% health when all four of those areas are in balance.
cool.
So take a note though. Everybody comes in to talk about their physical health with me, right?
Right.
Like what vitamins, I've got this arthritis, I've got this heartburn. So they're talking about their
Physical.
physicality.
Yeah.
But 50% of your whole health is dependent on mental, emotional.
Wow.
So,
50%, eh?
yes, if you divide 25 amongst those four items, there
Right.
you
Yeah.
go.
Yeah.
So, getting to that place. And, I'm going to finish too by saying I'm taking a program at the end of February on the mental emotional state of children, teens, pediatric, and how
Mm-hmm.
we can help them with homeopathic and remedies to lift them out of their chronic state. Like 2 years as a kid, caught up in all these mandates and issues that are affecting their lives, is starting to really take a toll on many of them. And I have high concern for how to treat them, break some now habits that they've developed to
Right.
compensate for their feelings and their worries. Like, let's get them all back and operating like young, happy human beings that they're meant to be.
Well, and they're probably seeing, the residual of what's happening to their parents because they're in the home and they're seeing whatever tension is there or whatever conversations are going on of anger and being upset or fearful or whatever, and they're seeing that and absorbing it and maybe not saying anything but keeping it in. Right? I would imagine.
Yeah, back to the stress, back to the not understanding, and how we got to keep it out of the tissues. So
Right.
the issues are in the tissues. And Candace Pert, Molecules of Emotion, is a really great book. It's a bit old now, but she was one of the pioneers in starting to establish how our emotions impact us physically.
Wow. And that's
Yes.
what was that book called again?
Molecules of Emotion.
Molecules of Emotion. That sounds like a good read. That's
Mhm.
interesting stuff to me anyway. I like that kind of
It,
stuff.
it's technical.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not trying to be technical here.
No,
I
no.
didn't want to get into the whole adrenaline, neurotransmitters,
Yeah.
cortisol. This is Saturday morning.
Yeah, yeah. We're kicking back.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So
No,
I hope
that's
that was helpful.
well.
People should go to the blog and also read some of the stuff I've got in there, on how to cognitively take yourself through the process of changing your viewpoint.
Right, right.
Feel better, have fun.
Nicole says, "Hello, happy Saturday." I like that, Nicole. You're awesome. That
It is a happy
it's a
Saturday,
happy
Nicole.
Saturday. That's right. It's a choice. It's a choice.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so everyone, if you have a chance, go to Linda's website, lindacodner.com. Go in and check out her blogs. She's got some amazing blogs in there, with some great information. And we look forward to you joining us on these live streams. Hopefully, this information is helpful to you and that you're gleaning some wisdom or some understanding or maybe answering some questions that you've maybe been pondering. And you can always reach out and book an appointment with Linda. If you need to get into a more granular situation where you really need to investigate any of these, mental, emotional, physical, or spiritual areas, because Linda doesn't just focus on the physical. And I'm really happy, Linda, that you mentioned that most people come to you for the physical, and there's three other parts there that are so important to the whole holistic health of an individual. And I'm really glad you shared that with us. That's just amazing. That's amazing.
Great. I'm glad you liked it. And I'll just close with the spiritual component of our health is just knowing that there and acknowledging that there are things out of our control that and not necessarily meant for us to understand as human beings. And
Hmm.
at this stage and place in time, whether it be science, whether it be our social culture, it's acknowledging and giving that up to Mother Nature, if you want.
Yeah.
She has an overseeing wisdom of how things come together and disband. So,
And I think you mentioned earlier, as we're wrapping up here, you mentioned earlier about gratitude, and that's a good first step. If you don't feel you're a spiritual person, that's a good first step to start feeling that spiritual part of yourself. It's a good way to ignite that, I think.
yeah, it develops compassion and it raises curiosity.
Right, right, right. So, anyways, everyone, have a great rest of your weekend. We look forward to seeing you next week. All the best. Keep healthy and safe. And Linda, thanks so much. We'll talk to you next time, right?
Right.
All
Take
right.
care.
Yeah. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Have fun.